Come on and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. Join award-winning host Dale Davidson as he interviews the most remarkable people you'll find in the entertainment capital of the world. You'll meet entertainers, sports figures, newsmakers, community and business leaders, and people just like you with stories that'll touch your heart. Now, here's Dale Davidson.
While in high school, he was one of 28 players selected to play in the coveted California High School All-Star Game in Hawaii. For the New Mexico Lobos, Randy was among the top 5 leaders in the nation in interceptions and punt returns. His years in the NFL included time with the Oakland Raiders, Cleveland Browns, and the Denver Broncos, which in 1978 took on the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl XII.
Welcome to Super Bowl XII. I'm Pat Summerall with Tom Brookshire.
They say there's no pressure like the pressure of a Super Bowl.
12 is underway, and it's going to be Butch Johnson. Around the 28, where he's stopped by Randy Rich.
After retiring from the NFL, he made his way back to California and is now a vice president at K-Love and Air One Radio Network. Please welcome Randy Rich.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson, from the city of entertainment, Las Vegas, Nevada, of course. Each and every week, we try to bring you fascinating guests, interesting personalities, Christians on a mission. Boy, we've done it this time because he's all of those things. Randy Rich.
Dale,
thanks for coming. Good to see you,
it's
buddy.
Good to be back in Las Vegas.
It's nice to have you back.
Yes, thank you.
You were a resident once upon a time.
I lived here for about 3.5 years.
Yeah. And what brought you here, and then what made you leave?
You know, Dale, I came here actually, and I've shared this before, that I came here to really see God work in my life. I'd come from New Mexico, where I had a lot of relationships with people, and it was a little bit cloudy as to whether or not the things that I was doing was a result of me, who I knew, or was it God doing it? And it was really a time that I just really wanted to come to a place I didn't know anybody and say, Lord, here I am. And it was fascinating.
You got to meet lots of people. You told me about that.
Yeah, we're not going to take that time now, but I'm going to tell you day after day after day. I literally woke up every morning and said, Lord, who are we meeting today?
Yeah.
And he would just roll that out. And I know that sounds crazy to people. Call me sometime and I'll tell you all about it.
Let's talk about your early life. Let's start with that if we can, and how you came to Christ. People are always fascinated by that. You bring it up in your book, and I want to right away tell people that this is a book that's very much worth having. It's called Nothing Wasted, Learning to Believe You Are Enough in a World of Labels, by Randy Rich, and it's Core is the publisher. You can get it online, or you can write Randy and email you.
Yeah, if you want to email me, you can email me at, I don't know when we
go right ahead.
rrich@KLOVEAIR1.com. That's rrich@KLoveAir1.com. If you do that, then I'll be able to sign it and personalize it for you. Otherwise, then you've got to go ahead and go through Amazon or Core Media to get the book.
You are with K-Love and Air One, and we'll get to that in a minute, but you are now an executive with them. You've been there 9 years,
yes,
I think you said?
Yep.
And it is, I'm told, the world's largest radio network.
Music network.
Oh, okay, music network.
In the world. We've got about 980, 85. It kind of changes almost daily.
Wow.
Because we buy and sell all the time. But stations all over the United States. Right. We're always about the 10th most active ULR on the internet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have quite a following internationally.
Wow. And it's all Christian.
It's all Christian.
Christian music all the time.
Yep.
Let's talk about your early life, your childhood. in the Bakersfield area. You really, I want to tell people that, and I told Randy this before we rolled cameras here today. I read a lot of books, and I read a lot of Christian books, best books I've ever read. And I'll tell you why, Randy. You opened up in a really heartfelt way about your life and didn't hold back. I mean, warts and all, the Randy Rich story, childhood to present.
It was interesting and a very difficult book to write.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Dale, it started out, there was a couple that really knew my story and said, you've got to put your football stories in. Yeah, right. Everybody thinks they needed to write a book. And so we started out to write this book about my journey in the NFL, which was pretty comical in itself. But then as the Stephen, the guy that I wrote this book with, the more we started to talk, the more the Lord was moving it in a completely different direction.
Yes.
And we couldn't deny it to a point where I had to go back to Mark and Gia, some friends of mine that sponsored this book. I said, hey, Mark, this isn't going to be a book about football stories. This is going to be more about my life, which is going to include those stories, some of those stories. But it was, Dale, and, it was a time to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And, again, as I was continuing to read in the scripture myself, I mean, God didn't hide the things that happened in people's lives. And I thought, boy, I wonder who's going to be my friend after they read this book and read all the ugly stuff about me. But you know what? Yeah. The best things in our life are pretty ugly.
Yeah, they are.
Really, they are.
And they're what change us.
Exactly.
And make us recognize, the power that the Lord has in our lives.
Yeah.
Tell me about Bakersfield.
So I grew up. Yeah, I grew up in a little suburb of Bakersfield. That's a pretty fancy word, but. In Bakersfield, there was a river called the Kern River, and it separated Oildale from Bakersfield.
Okay.
And if you lived in Oildale, you were referred to as a river rat. That's where I grew up. And there was a good part of town and a bad part of town.
Which is a denigrating term, I take it.
Yeah, it was. It was intended that way.
Yeah.
I grew up in a fairly large home. There were 6 siblings. And a very small home. My dad was a good man when he didn't drink. He was a hard-working man. He taught me a work ethic that I'll always be grateful for. But boy, when he drank, he was violent. And I can remember times when we got in trouble, Dale. We had to go out and cut our own switch off the mulberry.
I read that in the book.
I mean, if we didn't cut a thick enough one, we had to go back and get another one. And it was just mean. And I'll tell you what, I learned some bad parenting habits from my parents because we're just a product of our environment.
It's a cycle.
It does. But in any case, grew up in a home that didn't have a lot of money to do things. And my first job, I was a sweep boy in the potato sheds. Made $1 an hour.
Wow!
I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
7th grade.
Wow.
So I learned to work early and work hard, and I was in a position where if I wanted something, I had to work hard for it myself to get it.
And your dad had lots of regrets. You say in the book, he came from Arkansas, is that right?
Yep, he grew up in Arkansas, and at the age of 3rd grade level, he just had to go into the fields and work with the family.
So he quit school.
And never went back. He was a very intelligent man. He could add, subtract, divide, multiply in his head faster than you could on paper.
Wow.
But he was a little bit always ashamed of the fact that he didn't know how to read very well. And so I think there were things that were going on in his life that obviously, like we said, we just sort of rolls. My mom, on the other hand, was she was a professional baseball player.
Wow, that's great.
She played softball in 1937, 38, and 39. She was an all-star pitcher. She'd make $15 a game.
That was pretty good money.
It was very good money. It was when the guys went to war. The gals played, and then my mom and dad met. And really, my mom was 19 years old. And my dad made her quit baseball. He was kind of jealous of her being around the guys and the men that were coaching and everything. And I think she felt robbed.
Yeah.
But because of that, I think she tried to live her life through us. And she was the biggest supporter I had in pursuing athletics.
You say in the book that she just would go nuts in the stands. Would be screaming. You could hear her. Huh?
Yeah. The biggest mistake anybody would make, it would be to sit next to Agnes Rich in the football stands if they wanted to have some sanity in the game.
Oh, that's great. Talk about football and the impact that it had on your life, starting at the beginning. I mean, you were a football star there in Central California.
Football was my outlet. You know, I share this a lot in schools that I grew up a very frightened young boy, and that fear, the best way for me to mask that fear and to manage that fear was to use the emotion of anger. You know, if you get more angry than the other person. And that's what you were
taught at home.
Yeah, actually. And so what happened to me is I would this fear would be inside of me, but it would come out in a form of anger. Worked great in football. It didn't do so well in personal relationships.
Yeah.
But and so I managed it the best way I knew how. And my older brothers were football players, and they were my heroes. They played for the high school football coach who he's a hero in Central California, Turk Eliadis. And I just dreamed about being a North High star, and did very well in high school. Was acknowledged and had an opportunity to play college football at the University of New Mexico, and did well there. I was the first freshman. It was when they allowed freshmen to play varsity. I was the first freshman to start on New Mexico Lobos defense.
Wow!
Still hold a record there. I had an opportunity. I thought I was going to get drafted into the NFL, but that didn't happen.
Tell me about that day or those 2 days.
Very, very disappointing. You know, my whole life has always been a buildup of just about getting there to do it, and then, you know,
something comes up. We're all familiar with that. That comes to all of us.
Listen, New Mexico I wanted to play for the University of Arkansas.
Yeah.
That's where I wanted to play. They wouldn't take me.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, you get there and then, no, you settle. And so the same thing happened to me coming into the draft. The Denver Broncos said that they were looking at me and they thought they were probably going to draft me in a low round, but they strategize in that brain room, you know, and I guess they realized nobody was going to draft me. They could just get me as a free agent. So
be cheaper.
Yeah, I went up there.
Yeah.
I was one of 28 defensive backs that they invited to camp.
And they were going to keep 6 or 7.
That is four defensive backs times 7. That means 7 strings. I was on the 7th string as a defensive back, and made my way all the way down to where I eventually made the team.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And that was all God, though, Dale.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, I'm this 5'9" short little white guy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure when the
not
coaches,
that fast, you claim.
Well, but I was faster, but I had to because I was scared.
Yeah.
Okay. And but I'm sure when I showed up to camp, the coaches are looking and they're going like this, and then they go, "Okay, who's that?" All right. But you know what?
Somebody's little brother out there.
Yeah.
But you had fire, and a lot of that came from anger.
Yeah.
Were you able to, at that point in your life, because now you're a young adult, now you're a young man, were you able to overcome the difficulties of trying to mask your insecurity with anger, or did that continue?
Oh no, it was very difficult to mask it. And believe me, I was masking it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I mean, Del, for the longest time in my Christian walk, it was difficult because I felt like there were things in my life that weren't being dealt with, and I didn't know how to deal with them. I kept saying, Lord, here I am. I don't want to be angry anymore. I don't want to treat people bad. I don't want to say things, to people that would be hurtful. But it would happen. It was my sin nature was very strong, even as a believer. And it's like my pastor, Wayne Barber, who's a sweetheart man that's gone to be with the Lord.
Right, great guy.
Great guy. He used to tell me, he'd say, boy, did you think your flesh was getting better? And I'd look at him and I'd say, well, Wayne, I've been a believer for 20 years. It seems like things ought to be getting better. And he'd look at me and he'd say, son, he said, you don't understand the Scriptures. The Scriptures are teaching us that our sin is getting older, uglier, and wiser.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to let Jesus be Jesus in you. And I'd say, let Jesus be Jesus in me. How do I do that? That was the whole deal for me. Just tell me what the playbook says to do, because that was my mindset.
Right.
I approach Christianity, Dale, a lot like I did football. Give me the game book, and don't change the rules at halftime. I'll learn it, and I'll be as good as anybody else on that field if I understand the game.
Right.
Well, guess what? That doesn't work for Christianity.
No.
God is wanting us to go, let go, let me. And I was always going, yeah, Lord, I want to, but I think I can, oh, Lord, it was back and forth for me.
Well,
so goes my...
Being in a chaotic childhood situation, control is what you want.
Yeah.
You want, you just don't want chaos. Yeah. You want to be in charge. You want to have it your way. You're going to use whatever it takes to make that happen.
Right, and Dale, here's the thing, from college, my high school football coach, as much as I loved him, in a newspaper article said, too bad he's not bigger, too bad he's not faster. He might be able to play major college football. So then I go through the recruiting thing, and it would always come down, well, you're just a little bit smaller than we want, and so it was always this letdown. Then I get to the NFL. I start with the Denver Broncos. I get released by the Denver Broncos. I get picked up by the Detroit Lions. I get released by the Detroit Lions. I get picked up by the Denver Broncos again. Go to the Super Bowl. That was pretty good. Then I get released again. I get picked up by the Oakland Raiders. And then I get released by the Oakland Raiders. And I go to Cleveland and I stay there. And guess what? 3 weeks.
3 games.
3 games before I get my pension.
They let you go.
They let me go.
Yeah. And you went...
And man, I'm going to tell you what, if you don't think that works on a person's security and insecurity issues, it did.
Yeah.
And see, the best, and man, all that insecurity just boiled up anger in me.
I'll bet.
And it was a bad scene.
We're gonna hear about some of the good things here in a minute. We need to take a brief break. We'll be back with Randy Rich right after this. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you're enjoying Las Vegas tonight. The guests we've had on the program are wonderful examples of Christians who take seriously Christ's command to love one another. In addition to the hundreds of television stations across the United States now carrying our show, we have been presented with the outstanding opportunity to bring these inspiring stories to people around the world. An international satellite network in the Russian and Ukrainian languages has asked us to provide them with episodes to be broadcast to millions. To make a gift to support this very special effort, please send your check or money order to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To use your credit or debit card, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you.
The screen, Avellini back to throw. It's Musso, almost picked off. Johnny Musso at the 40-yard line, and Randy Rich. Now, you probably haven't heard about Randy Rich. He's a free agent find out of the University of New Mexico, 5'10", 175, and he's seen a lot of activity. He's been returning punts. There he goes back for this anticipated punt on a 4th and 4.
Randy Rich's road to the NFL was not the road that most take to get there. Randy was born and raised in Oildale, California, a tiny suburb of Bakersfield. Randy was the youngest of 6 children. His father, with a 3rd grade education, became a truck driver to support the family in the small community known mostly for oil drilling and hard knocks. Growing up with 5 siblings in a 3-bedroom, 1,300 home, the first challenges as a youth.
My dad was a good man when he didn't drink, but when he did drink, he could be a very violent person. I remember one late night, I must have been around 8 years old, I was fast asleep in the bed with my brother next to me. I woke up when the light flicked on. I saw my dad standing there in the shadows. The next thing I knew, my dad had walked over to my oldest brother and slugged him in the mouth while he was asleep. A fight broke out, and I remember cowering in the corner hoping it would end.
After completing high school, Randy attended a small, virtually unknown college at the time, the University of New Mexico, to play football and continue his dream of making it to the NFL. Upon graduating from college, Randy entered the NFL and became a member of the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions, and eventually the Denver Broncos, where he played in Super Bowl XII, recording the very first tackle of the game.
Playing in the Super Bowl was the highest point of my football career. And looking back, I'm still amazed that this short little white guy, me, was able to achieve so much by following my dreams and never, ever giving up.
Now, Randy spends his days as a vice president at K-Love and Air One Radio, where he travels the country talking about his story and how to follow your dream. Please welcome Randy Rich.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. We are very lucky to have Randy Rich with us today, former NFL player, played in a Super Bowl XII for the Denver Broncos, where he was number 40. And what's your distinction from that game?
Well, made the first tackle in that game.
First tackle.
Also had the first penalty in that game, too. I have to be honest to say that as well. But, yeah, what a dream come true, Dale.
Yeah, can you imagine when you were a little kid in Oildale saying, I hope one day I get to make it on the high school team?
Yeah, I remember growing up watching Johnny Unitas and thinking, man, can I? And I'd go back, you know what I'd do? I'd watch a football game on TV and I'd go out to the front yard, play football.
Oh, yeah.
Pretend like I was, them,
Yeah, that's every kid really does, but who actually makes it to the Super Bowl? Yeah. You know, you're one in a million.
Well,
you really are.
I know it's been 2 years since the 50th anniversary of Super Bowl XII, but back then there were 2,047 players that have ever played in a Super Bowl.
Wow.
That's a pretty small fraternity.
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate to be one of those. And again, all glory goes to the Lord, because there's no other reason, Dale, for me, a short little white guy, to have achieved that level without an ultimate purpose that God could utilize. And I think it's what it is and what I do today.
Do you feel that you are fulfilling what he had in mind for you then?
I do. I really do. And
talk about what you're doing now.
First of all, I would just say to anyone, whatever it is that keeps you up at night, you know what I'm talking about, where you start thinking about if I could, what if, type thing.
Yeah.
That's really that vision I believe God's put in your heart.
Okay.
And I think
that's why it keeps coming back up.
I think we're to pursue it. And I think once you do pursue it, and a lot of times God puts you on a road, right, and changes gears. A little detour here, a little detour here to get you where he wants, where he can utilize us the most.
Yeah.
But I believe God, when you do slide into that, I think you're in your wheelhouse. And man, I'm very excited about what I'm doing today.
Let's talk about that, and then we can get back to other things. I got a chance today to sit and watch you make a terrific presentation at Western High School, right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Clearly they got the message, because I read the cards afterwards, the comment cards. And although being a public school, you didn't specifically say Jesus Christ.
Right.
You might have said God once or twice. I don't remember. But they got the message, didn't they? Yeah.
They do. It's really interesting.
Tell us all about Dare to Dream.
Yeah, it's called Dare to Dream, and it's sponsored by Air One Radio Network, which is part of EMF Broadcasting that owns K-Love and Air One. And we go into schools all over the country. We don't charge the schools. We come in with a fully contained presentation, as you saw today. And at every school, we give an iPad away. So we're not not only not charging the school, we're investing in the school and in their students, because it was an assembly, Dale, when I was in high school that got my attention to start to think differently about my circumstances and situation that I was being raised in. And I've always known that school assemblies are as good as the day you do them, right? But they can be awfully good. Mm-hmm. And so we put together, I think, a program that it really ignites hope in a student. It gives them a sense of hope for their life, regardless of their circumstance or situation. And one of the things we tell them, look, you didn't get to choose your parents, you didn't get to choose your skin color. But there are things you can choose in life. You can choose the circle of friends that you hang out with. We talk about that a lot in the school, that you show me your circle of friends and I'll give you a glimpse of your future. So we talk about a number of things, but ultimately it's this, that every choice you're making is like planting seeds in the soil. They're going to grow up to be something. You plant good seeds, good things going to come. Bad fruit's going to come. And like I tell them in my life, man, I had some things that I chose to do. It took a bulldozer to knock down in my life. And it's hurtful. And so our hope is that we can come, glean a little experience with them and share some things that could help them kind of may reconsider some of the choices that they're making, who they're talking to.
Yeah, you have a great illustration that you did this morning at Western High where you put stickers all over you. Yeah. Tell us what that symbolized.
Well, here's the thing, and that God woke me up 4 o'clock in the morning with that idea.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. I don't take credit for anything there, seriously. I mean, I was sitting at my desk getting ready to go speak at a school, and there was a sticky pad right there. Right. And I was going to talk to them, who are you listening to today? And what are you listening to? And I thought back on my own life. And I thought, what if I would have listened to that label that said I was too small? What if I would have listened to in the newspaper article that said, he's too slow? Wrong neighborhood. You didn't grow up in a good neighborhood. Yeah. And you're not very smart. Right. What if I'd have listened to those things, Dale? And I'm telling you, today, our kids are inundated through social media, all kinds of labels. Yeah. They're being bullied. We call them bullies, but now the kids call them the haters, right? Yeah. The haters are throwing these labels at them all the time. And what I do is I put those labels on me, and I ask the kids, what does that do to my dream? And they're sharp. They say, covers it up, chokes it out, steals your dream. I said, exactly. You've put labels on yourself, or you've allowed others to put labels on you. So we go through an exercise of getting rid of those labels, and then we consider some other labels. And then, sometimes I'll engage the audience. What labels would you like to be known by? I'm smart. I'm good looking. I'm a dream maker. Yeah, you are. And I say, you're a champion. You heard them today.
Oh yeah, they loved that.
They loved it. Yeah. To be called a champion. Yeah. They just cheered. To be called a winner. Yeah. I had a card, and we have these cards at the end of the assembly where the kids fill them out, and we give away an iPad, and it's based on what they say. It's not a drawing. And we had a kid that that said, Mr. Rich, below is my mom and dad's telephone number. Would you please call them and tell them what you told me today, because they don't believe I can do anything. Wow. And Dale, when you hear that, you're hearing the heart of a student that is feeling oppressed. They've had the weight of those labels on them. You're no good. You're dumb. All that. And man, I'm going to tell you, if you're a parent, let me tell you, it takes 10 positive things to correct a negative statement towards somebody. 10 positive words to take away one negative. Right. Encourage your kids. Man, let them be dreamers. Yep. Dream big dreams. God loves to do that which looks impossible, like in my life, and make it possible. Why? So that I can never say, look what I did. It's what God did in and through me. And that's the same thing Jesus said. He said, I can do nothing apart from that which the Father does in and through me. And so when we capture that, and we can share that with these students, they come to life. You saw it today.
Yeah. I think God put it on my heart as a father to say the following, and I remember saying this to a buddy of mine who was an ex-Marine and decorated in Vietnam and a tough guy, you know, and he was having trouble with both his son and his daughter, and he asked my advice. I'm not going to offer it without being asked. And he said, you know, how can I encourage them? How can I get them out of this funk? How can I stop this stuff? And the Lord just put this in my mouth. I said, I believe that you cannot over-encourage kids.
Right.
You can't overdo it.
Right.
And he laughed. He thought that was funny. Yeah. He said, you gotta keep them in line. Otherwise they're gonna, just go right off the curb and, over the cliff. And I felt sad for those kids because I knew what that meant.
Yeah. And, and Dale, you've heard the statement before, people don't care what you have to say until they understand how much you care about them.
That's right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And if you're not caring about them, I had 3 daughters. And I learned this after they were grown. I wished I would have learned it earlier. But I wished I would have learned this one thing, raising daughters. Learning to ask them, is this something you need Dad to fix, or do you just need me to listen? And about 90% of the time, Dale,
you had the answer.
They just want to listen.
Yeah, but they don't want to.
They don't want me to. They don't want me to fix anything. They just want me to listen to them, care about their problem, not fix it. And I didn't learn that until later in life. But I practiced it with my wife.
Yeah. Now you went through a divorce. I did too. We make mistakes. How much do you feel that your childhood contributed to, the disillusion of your first marriage?
Well, I'm going to take responsibility for it, Dale. I think it's always easy to say, oh, that's why I was the way I was. I just wore my wife out, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I was a black and white person.
Yeah.
There was no gray area in my life.
Yeah.
And listen, if you have 4 women in your house, I want you to know there's lots of gray area, okay? But the truth is, I was very dogmatic about things, and that's harsh and that's hard on a woman.
Yeah.
And so, I went through the divorce, but I'm going to tell you, all things work together for the good of those in Christ Jesus.
Sure.
God hates divorce. I know why he hates divorce. Some of the repercussions of a divorce, Dale, I still live with.
Sure.
Okay? Mm-hmm. However, God loves the divorcee. And he still has a plan for a divorced person. And I'm going to tell you, I am so grateful that the Lord would allow me the opportunity to meet my wife, Kathy.
I was going to ask
who has just blessed my life, but I feel like I've helped bless her life too, because of all the things that God took me through in my divorce. And what he took me through in my divorce, the biggest thing was, dude, you ain't in control of anything. You thought
Back
you
with
were.
that fist.
Yeah, you thought you were in control. But I'm going to tell you something. Son, let go and let me lead your life. And let Jesus, and it's the message of living grace that I began to learn from my pastor, Wayne Barber, that changed my life, Dale. It changed my life.
Wow. I had a golfing partner years ago who went through a divorce, and I was still in my first marriage, and it was troubled. It was a troubled marriage. So I asked him some advice. I said, what are you doing differently with your second marriage? Because you really seem to be doing much better than you did before. What's the new approach? He said, well, I find out what my wife wants, and I give it to her.
There's also another thing. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. Listen, don't sweat the little things. And remember, everything's a little thing. And then ask yourself another question. In the scope of eternity, how big of a deal is this really? And honestly, Dale, when you think about it, apart from salvation and the essential things, the things that we get upset about, we won't even think or talk about it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really is. But listen, sin is an ugly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the middle letter in sin, it's I.
Mm-hmm.
We are our biggest problems because we are selfish. I am. I can't talk for anybody else. I'm selfish. And
we all are.
In my root,
let's face it.
I want to make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway.
And sometimes that comes at the expense of
others.
Your wife,
kids,
or your kids, or your coworkers, or any of those things.
Friends.
Yeah. Before we take a brief break, the other great story that I heard was, I asked the guy, I said, who makes the decisions in your household? He said, well, I make all the big decisions. My wife makes the smaller decisions. And he said, well, what's an example of a big decision? He said, I don't know. We haven't had one yet.
I like that.
That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. On that note, we're going to take a brief break and come back for our final segment with my pal, Randy Rich.
Potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you.
He tries, he fails. He doubts, he fears. He hurts, he cries. Can't look in the mirror. He's always been picked last. Rejection occurs in slow motion, but joy in fast forward. She feels, she falls. She frowns, she faints. Wishes she had a different body shape, a different face. Her fear is herself. Believes she needs to trace someone else or erase herself. Can't face herself. Does she know she's in a race with herself? Fear can knock the lights out of dreams if you're stuck in portrait mode. But there's so much more to you if only you tap into panoramic view. Zoom out, take in the entire landscape. You're a high-resolution image, no filter. Don't let negativity filter your dreams into the wastebasket of passivity. I hear a lot about bullying in schools. Listen, demeaning someone else's dreaming does not supply you with meaning. Those that label are those who don't know how to label themselves. Those who demean others are those who fear themselves. Even toddlers can tell Instagram stories that only live 24 hours. But dreamers leave legacies that live on when they pass away. Steer clear of the wrong team. I'd rather have one friend who inspires me to dream than 10,000 followers who only like me when I'm entertaining. Reality is liking what you see. Dreaming is when you like what you don't see yet. It's when you dare to believe even when the crowd doesn't agree. They say, in your dreams. That's right, because the reality they now see was birthed in a dream that was once unseen. Label them scribbles, they'll give you art. Label them slow, they'll give you wisdom. Label them dumb, they'll dumbfound you. Label them weird, they'll give you creative. Label them nerd, they'll give you genius. The great things you achieve don't make you valuable. They just confirm you already are. You're great because you're you. Great isn't something you become. It's something you unfold, unleash, unlock, and release. You are like a trend, waiting to be discovered. A Picasso mask that hasn't been uncovered yet. I once asked a group of people, what's the greatest invention of all time? They said smartphone, laptop. Well, here's the truth. The greatest invention of all time is you. You are a dream come true. So wake up and dream. I dare you.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Day. We're very pleased to have a great pal of mine and a terrific guest Randy Rich, former NFL star.
I love that radio voice.
That's
that
my
you
voice.
Thanks, Dale. It's good to be here with you.
It's nice to have you. Talk about living grace versus saving grace. This is one of the things that I've heard you speak about to other groups, and it stuck with me.
Yeah.
You know, years later, I think about it. And if you don't mind, run through that.
Well, again, I have to go back to my wonderful mentor that I had, Wayne Barber, who helped me understand living grace and the difference between saving grace and living grace. And really, I can kind of narrow it down to a verse in Philippians. It says in chapter 1, verse 6, Paul says, I am confident of one thing, that he who began a good work will perfect that work until the day of Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to tell you, when you look at that, you have to answer the question, who's doing the work? It's always the Lord. He starts it, He perfects it, He finishes it. And I along with, I think, many Christians, think we understand the saving grace message. Yep, I need to be saved.
Yes.
So, and I'm glad the Lord went on the cross and saved me. He saved me. But now, once I'm saved, I have a little bit more to do with that. Okay? Now I kind of engage and I kind of get better because I'm going to be a better Christian. Mm-hmm. Well, according to Philippians 1:6, that's not right.
Doesn't work that
Doesn't
way.
work. But because we live in this capitalistic society, I think our capitalistic mindset has fused into the Christian world.
Explain what you mean by that.
Well, I think, you know, I'll explain it this way. In football, if I wanted to get faster, I'd run more sprints and I'd get in better shape. If I wanted to get stronger, I'd lift more weights. If I wanted to get smarter, I'd study the book.
Right.
And we think, and I translated that into my Christian walk. I thought, give me the Bible, that's the playbook. Mm-hmm. I'll read that baby and I'll learn it and I'll be as good as anybody doing it, right? And that sounds so stupid when you say it, right? Yeah. But that's really, I think, that's, at least I'll say this, that's how I approached it. Mm-hmm. And so I was always left frustrated because I wasn't doing a very good job. Mm-hmm. Well, when you understand that Jesus starts the work, He perfects the work, and He finishes. Even if you go over to Philippians chapter 2, verses 12, it says, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit early on. Mm-hmm. And said, this is the mind of Christ. Mm-hmm. They say, you know, and then it goes on and says, therefore work out your own salvation, semicolon, for it is God in you working it out for His good pleasure. So when you read the first part of that verse, you think, I'm working this thing out. No. It's God working it out for His pleasure. Again, it's, you know,
you in God and God in you.
Yeah, but but the thing about it is, Christ in me, okay? Christ in me. The Holy Spirit directing me. Not as a robot, but influencing me because of my relationship with Him. And again, having lived in a performance-based family and a performance-based society, it was hard for me to understand that there was only one reason that God created me. Mm-hmm. There was only one reason, and that was to have a friendship. He didn't create me to do a bunch of stuff for Him. I get to do a bunch of things, that's kind of fun, but He created me for one reason, to have friendship and a relationship. Mm-hmm. That's what fellowship means. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And He didn't need it, but He wanted it. Mm-hmm. And once you begin to understand that your flesh isn't getting better, there's a constant battle. There's only one perfect person that ever lived, that was Jesus Christ. He knows. That's why we have the verse, confess our sins one to another. He's faithful to forgive us. Mm-hmm. Why? Mm-hmm. Why? Wait a minute. We were saved once. We're going to still sin? Yeah, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so if we can not be so hard on ourselves and understand God knows us, and then, you know, it's just like this. You know, God, when we're walking down this journey, on our journey, and we come up to a truth, a decision, an intersection, so to speak, it's just a little bit of our faith bending towards God that engages God's faith in us. It is not us doing it. It is Christ who lives in
And you
me.
can't possibly do enough
You can't
to
do
earn
enough.
your way into heaven, which people still believe after they become Christians.
I don't think any of us want to believe that, but
Yeah.
we fall into it because it's our flesh nature that is getting smarter and uglier and wiser. And that's why we need to let Jesus be Jesus in us. And it's constant. I'm constantly doing this, Dale. I want this posture, but my fingers still want to come back, okay?
Yes.
It's, oh man, it's
Yeah.
that competitiveness, it's that drive, you know, it's all those things that make you who you are, but every strength overindulged becomes a weakness.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great way of putting it. You give a terrific example about a drug addict who goes to a pastor. He comes to Christ, right? Gives up his life, gets all the knowledge that he thinks he needs, reads the Bible, gets baptized, right? Can't kick one drug. And he keeps going back to his pastor. Tell us about that.
Well, the story really happens, and it's simply this. The pastor does an altar call. Hey, come up. Somebody will be here to pray with you. And a good, loving Christian brother or sister is there waiting to pray with you. And they give you a few Bible verses to memorize and say, hey, let's get back together next week. Okay, get back together next week. Hey, Dale, tell me a little bit more about yourself. And you tell me, you've been using cocaine, you've been a drug addict, but man, I love what the preacher said. He said, Jesus saved me. And okay, so hey, if you want to get involved in the church, you can be involved in the parking attendant. You can come and come to Wednesday night worship and get into a small group. That'll be real helpful for you. All good things, Dale. All good things. And that person does that, and in a couple of weeks he comes back and he's as open and honest as he was the day he prayed to receive Christ. And he says to the guy goes, "How are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm doing okay, but I'm still having a hard time smoking marijuana." And the counselor goes, "Well, did you do this? Did you memorize these verses? Did you go do this?" Yes, I did that. Oh, okay. And after time and time again, let's say it goes on a couple of months, pretty soon that drug person's going to become a good liar, or he's going to move away and do something else.
He's going to drift away.
Because we're not patient enough to let God do what he's going to do in a person's life. And I'm going to tell you, Dale, I've been in situations where I've seen a person get saved and every addiction they had was broken that moment. But I've also seen brothers and sisters in Christ who have struggled for quite a long time with their addictions, eating addictions, whatever. And they're believers. But it just, if we make people feel like they have to perform to earn approval, we're going to run everybody out of the church.
Yeah. It's a fine line, though. You don't want to say that behavior's okay.
No, you don't say
Go
that.
ahead
Yes,
and look
that-
at pornography or
No,
drink
no.
or,
No, but here's the thing
Right.
I would say. And here's what people said to me when I went through my divorce. Randy, I know that you have problems, and here's what I would say. Hey, Dale, I know that you're having a hard time kicking that drug problem. He said, I'm going to continue praying for you, and I want you to know something. I'm going to always be your friend. I will always be your friend. That's a lot different than saying, well, are you sure you read all those verses? Did you memorize those verses? Hey, yes, that's all good stuff. But what people need to know is that you're going to love them unconditionally. And when you love unconditionally, you can't help but fall into that. And that's what's happened to me. I had some friends that went away, were never my friends again, because they didn't want to be around me. But I had those friends that stood by me, and I remember my friend Jay saying to me when I was struggling, he says, Randy, I just want you to know one thing. Regardless of what you decide to do or how you do it, I will always be your friend.
That meant the world to you, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Yeah.
And I have opportunities right now that God provides for me, and I've been able to say that same thing. And not only say it, but to do it.
Yeah.
To be a friend.
Yeah. I had a friend recently who was sinned publicly. He's a public figure who sinned, and it ended up in the media and those kinds of things. And so he asked for counsel. You know, he's a friend, wasn't my best friend, but you know, he knew as a Christian, I think, is why he came to me, and he's not. And I used the opportunity to lead him to Christ, which was a wonderful gift. But I said to him, the truth of the matter is some people are never going to speak to you again. Some people are going to shy away, at least until they see, you know, whether or not you've kicked this whatever issue is. And others are going to stick by you. And there may not be a lot, but you need to know that those are your real friends. That's the best I could come up with.
And if you've got enough that you can count on one hand, you're a pretty lucky guy.
That's right. Isn't that the truth? Let's talk a little bit about the book some more. It's called Nothing Wasted, Learning to Believe You Are Enough in a World of Labels. And you do one thing, it's really your story. And as I said, you know, you just laid it all out there. But at the end, I found this to be a fascinating thing. At the end of every chapter, you have a series of questions. What was the purpose of doing that? It's almost like a workbook in that sense.
Right.
But there's just a few, you know, 4 or 5 questions.
Yeah, you know, the whole idea was it moved into this, and it really actually came from Stephen, who co-wrote this with me. He said, Randy, I feel like I find myself asking the same questions you were asking.
Yeah.
He said, I'd like to maybe look at let's put some questions together at the end of each chapter to self-reflect.
Okay.
Because the truth of the matter is, we all struggle in various areas, and the very best thing that you can do in terms of moving through any situation is recognizing and acknowledging that there's might be something going on. So it was just designed to say, hey, what did you think about this? Or how does this make you feel when you read that? You know, and it's just, again, it's a self-reflective. And I found that the people that actually do that have really benefited from that. So
yeah, I'm going to go back and do it. I've read the book, and I'm going to go back with my journal and answer those questions that most intrigue me.
Yeah.
And I think there's a self-awareness that builds from that, a self-examination that builds from that will help in your walk.
Yeah, I think so.
You know?
Hope so.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, listen, I didn't write the book to make money. I wrote the book because it was my heart, and God said this would be of value. And I have had some neat things in the book. If you've noticed, my email's in there, Dale.
Yeah.
And
why don't you tell everybody the email and your website or your whatever it is?
I told the publisher I wanted to put my phone number in. They said, no, I don't think you ought to do that. Well, I did want to, but we will on the next
if you do it again,
redo.
Yeah.
But my email address is rrich, all lower cap, at KLOVEAIR and the numeric 1.com. That's rrich@kloveair1.com. And I'm going to give my phone number, Dale.
Go right ahead.
I don't mind. My phone number is 505-720-1824. 505-720-1824. If you happen to pick the book up and you've got questions, because I've had this happen, Dale. I've had people call me. They've gotten in touch with me through email and asked, can we talk? And I've talked to several people, and it's been a real blessing to be able to walk through some of the struggles that I've had with other people and help them at least understand, hey, listen, God hasn't abandoned you. He hasn't left you there. He's going to do something in your life that's even more exciting than you could have ever dreamed. And that's why there's really nothing wasted on this journey, Dale, if we turn our heart towards God.
And they were a blessing to you, and you were even more of a blessing to them, I believe. And you've been a great blessing to come on the show.
Well,
amazingly enough, we're out of time. But so nice to see you again, Randy. God bless you.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Randy Rich, ladies and gentlemen. So get in touch with him. Give him a call. He's a real guy and a real down-to-earth human being. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. We appreciate your support here at Las Vegas Tonight. And tune in this time next week. We'll be on again. And as I try to say, and remember to say at the end of every show, please walk with him.
Potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you.
Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you're enjoying Las Vegas Tonight. The guests we've had on the program are wonderful examples of Christians who take seriously Christ's command to love one another. In addition to the hundreds of television stations across the United States now carrying our show, we have been presented with the outstanding opportunity to bring these inspiring stories to people around the world. An international satellite network in the Russian and Ukrainian languages has asked us to provide them with episodes to be broadcast to millions. To make a gift to support this very special effort, please send your check or money order to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To use your credit or debit card, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with Dale Davidson. Send your tax-deductible gifts to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. Or call 702-480-3989. Thanks for watching.